Hey guys, Dirty Dingus McDuck here, and welcome to the recast. I am joined, as most of the time, by MonstersReview.
What's up, guys?
And we are going to be talking about one of the most prolific and, dare I say, beloved reboots, Ducktales, at long last.
Woo!
We've got two pretty similar episodes to talk about, but very different in approaches, I'd say.
Oh, yeah.
So it's going to be a pretty fun discussion. But before that, we've got a lot of news. There's been a lot of stuff that has happened in the past few weeks, and we haven't done news in a little while. Before that, Monsters, how are you?
I'm doing pretty good. You know, it's almost turkey season, getting ready for that. Otherwise,
Are you chapped?
I'm still feeling pretty chapped, yeah. You know, my emotions are pretty chapped right now. No, but yeah, I'm doing okay. How are you doing?
That's good. I'm doing all right. I've definitely had better days.
Yeah.
But I'm hanging in there.
That's good.
Very excited to talk about these DuckTales episodes. We have a Discord server. It's called the Recast Discord server. And there's a link in the description if you would like to join it and be a part of the conversation, talk about episodes that we are going to talk about next week and beyond, and talk about episodes we've talked about in the past, talk about news, talk about whatever, as long as, you know, it's friendly.
Yeah.
Did we have any corrections from last week?
Yeah. Well, first off, we were talking about the Gravity Falls episode, Susan the Real Girl, and you were mentioning how Giffany, and we also brought up Barry from Foster's as kind of like another example. You called them tsunderes? I'm not. I think tsundere.
I can't correct you because I pronounced it wrong too, so I'm not even going to say the word.
But regardless, they're not. They don't belong to that group. Apparently, they're yanderes. Yanderes. So the difference is, these types are dangerous, whereas the tsunderes act cold at first, but then they're nice and they warm up to you.
Oh, okay. Thank you for correcting us. Yeah, I had a feeling I had something wrong there, but you know, I should also note the person who pointed that out was proud of me for somewhat knowing something vaguely anime-ish. So I'll take that as a win.
Bonus points.
Yeah. There's another thing. As Monsters would say, it's not really a correction. DuckTales is on Disney+. I added something in post real quick to just point that out, but you and Noah get points deducted from last week, so you didn't get a perfect score, so... and also I found out that National Treasure 1 is on Disney+, so that wasn't part of the question, but I had said that it wasn't, and it turns out to be. So, yeah, that's cool. More stuff on Disney+.
Yeah.
So, are you ready to get right into the news?
I am.
Okay, so we are in the midst of the streaming wars here. Things are heating up, okay?
Big battles are happening.
For anyone who feared that Nickelodeon was going to create their own streaming service, don't worry. They're still playing all sides. And they have signed a deal with Netflix. Now, we know that they've worked with Netflix in the past, most notably on the very recent, well, not the very recent anymore, but the Rocco special and the Zim special came out on Netflix. And in addition to that, what is it, Pinky and Malinky? One of their shows that was slated to come out years ago on Nick ended up coming out on Netflix. So Nick and Netflix were in talks for a while. And of course, Nickelodeon's content has kind of come and gone in waves on Netflix. There was a time when SpongeBob was on Netflix, but that's a long time ago. Anyway, they signed this deal, which means that they're bringing a lot of their content over. But more importantly than that, Nickelodeon and Netflix are going to be working together to produce new content for Netflix.
Yeah, they mention like fully original content, but also based on Nickelodeon's library of characters.
A part of the new content is going to be featuring the old characters, or are you saying that the old shows are going to be on?
No. The former.
So that's interesting. That means potentially more things like the Rocco special and the Zim special and the Arnold special, projects like that, potentially. Maybe this is where that Rugrats movie that was canceled, by the way, or at least not slated to be theatrical anymore. Maybe that's where that's going.
Yeah.
Or it might just be canceled outright. Like I kind of predicted that it wouldn't come to fruition because like CGI Rugrats babies and realistic humans just doesn't sound like a fun idea. TBH. I don't know if it's assumed that the show is still going forward, but I don't know if there's anything word on that. But yeah. So Nickelodeon and Netflix didn't announce any shows for this, but thanks to an inside reporter at, was it New York Times?
Yeah, according to the Times, they say the informant spoke on the condition of anonymity to discuss private details.
Generally, kids media, like, no one gives a crap about. No reporters will look into anything. I don't really know why, but no one is interested in, like, a lot of the unethical stuff that these companies do.
Yeah.
Except for us. You know, but anyway, yeah, apparently there was an informant, and we got information that there is a Squidward spinoff that's going to come to Netflix and maybe Nickelodeon too. It's not exclusively Netflix that we know of. It might be, it might not be. We don't know.
Well, here's the crazy thing. They specified that it's a music-based project.
Yeah.
Okay, let's just recontextualize this. A music-based project on Squidward, a character notorious for being awful at music.
Yeah. I don't have a big reaction to this like some people might want me to or expect me to. There's just really not enough details to know anything, because for all we know, it could just be like a bunch of music videos with Squidward. You know what I mean? Like, and I'm not saying that'd be good, but I don't know. I want to see a little more information. I mean, it's definitely seems like something that Steven Hillenburg wouldn't care about or wouldn't want, but
well, it makes sense to me. Like one of the most iconic elements of SpongeBob, or at least the earlier seasons, is the music. Think about how many CDs they sold. The iconic nature of the songs like Sweet Victory and Ripped Pants and Texas and so on. I'm sure that they're just going to try to replicate that sort of magic and sell a lot of music.
Well, what? Oh, okay. What are you? Oh, God, that's even worse. That you're predicting that this is just to sell soundtracks.
Oh yeah, no, it's super smart. It's brand integration.
Ugh, gross.
That's like the entire reason why Big Time Rush existed. They're a boy band who performed real shows, but also they were on a sitcom.
Yeah, well, yeah, there's a reason why both Nickelodeon and Disney Channel did a ton of those shows. Like Naked Brothers Band, Jessie, Hannah Montana. Is that so? That's what you're predicting. Do you
not
think
entirely, but it just makes sense. Like it's
okay.
It's a reason that favors why they think it should exist.
Right. Because like this could be any. I mean, it could be like a Phineas and Ferb thing where it's an 11-minute cartoon with Squidward, but like every episode there's a song. Or it could be like an educational series where it's like Squidward describes musical it's so nebulous right now that we know very, very little about it, that I'm definitely not for it, but I don't want to come out here and be like this is the worst idea ever because I don't know anything. I will say a spinoff about Squidward sounds like a better idea than a bunch of the SpongeBob characters at camp where they retcon a bunch of things. But of course, there are still problems. Like, even though I love Squidward as a character and he has worked as the protagonist in his episodes, like, is SpongeBob going to be in this? Is anyone else going to be in this? Because what do you do, right? Is there going to be a new foil for Squidward? Or is it just going to be that is Squidward going to get lightened up, right? Not be as grumpy?
I'm assuming that's going to be the case.
You think they're going to kind of like soften him up?
Assuming this is Squidward centric. I feel like most of the time that we see Squidward alone, he's pretty happy. It's not normally until he's being annoyed by SpongeBob that he is grumpy.
That's fair. And even like a lot of the episodes where he is the protagonist, like Squid Noir, SpongeBob is right by his side. I wouldn't say there's a ton of episodes really that it is just kind of Squidward alone. Like I'm thinking of Squidsville is one, and he's miserable. Band Geeks, of course, is the most beloved SpongeBob episode. Just if you were to poll everyone, that's the one that's going to come up the top. And of course, it is a Squidward protagonist episode, but it does also have like every other character in Bikini Bottom backing him up and being foils to him, you know, for him to play off of. Him being grumpy and frustrated wouldn't work if these were just random nobody characters. You know, it works because you have all of these other established characters playing off each other and screwing everything up in their own unique ways. I think it's better than a Patrick spinoff, I guess. Just judging it on who you could spin it off. I think Squidward does make more sense than a lot of other characters in that he he has a multitude of interests artistically, and we haven't seen a ton of him without SpongeBob. But yeah, no, it does really raise the question of what is he going to be like? How different is it going to be? How similar is it going to be? And what's the point? But again, this is all just early stuff. This isn't even an official release, so I'm not like judging the fact that we don't know anything. It's really just speculation off the littlest information we know.
Right, and I can't say that I'm surprised either, because I remember reading an article, I think this past April, that said Nickelodeon has 12 SpongeBob spin-offs in development. I don't know how accurate that was, but if that was true, I mean, development can mean anything, but it wouldn't surprise me that they're trying to scrap a bunch of ideas.
Don't forget the game show, the stupid YouTube game show.
Yeah, that preceded the Patrick announcement. Or the Camp Coral announcement.
Yeah, I was going to say Patrick announcement. Yeah. I think people were speculating there'd be a Patrick show.
No, I think the Patrick thing was the game show. I could be wrong. I don't remember.
Okay. Well, at any rate, it is also concerning that, I mean, again, we don't know a timetable on this, but Camp Coral's not coming out until like summer of next year. So is this just it? Are we always is it going to be like one other SpongeBob side project going on at all times? Or are we going to just like legitimately get bombarded with these one after another after another? Cause like I said, the seal's already broken, right? You've already kind of gone past what the creator intended. You've already gone past what I think a lot of people would consider milking the franchise. I guess one spinoff or two spinoffs doesn't really make too much of a difference. It's just a question of, is it going to be a ton of spinoffs? How oversaturated are we going to be on SpongeBob?
Yeah, and I don't know how fair of an assessment this is, but I feel like some people may already have experienced or are experiencing SpongeBob fatigue.
Burnout, yeah.
Yeah, so to have even more stuff thrown their way, I definitely can imagine it being very overwhelming and can be a turnoff for a lot of people.
Mm-hmm. I said it before a long time ago, but SpongeBob was never a show that was meant to grow into like this big media empire. It is not the sort of premise that you can squeeze thousands and thousands of episodes out of. I mean, you can if you just keep repeating things, of course. But, in terms of, it's not a show like Ducktales 2017 or Ducktales 87, shows that have a lot of characters, a lot of rich lore, aren't afraid to bring in new characters and new settings and new locations all the time and just expand the world from the get-go. Those are shows that you could reasonably have hundreds of episodes for because of the amount of different characters and setups and situations they've established. SpongeBob doesn't have all of that, and although they have been like establishing new things very slowly, they are definitely afraid of blowing out the world because that would be a huge shift for the show.
Yeah.
So SpongeBob was never meant to have as many episodes as it did, and it's also never intended to have a ton of spin-offs or become like a cinematic universe, Mm-hmm. It's not intended for it. Now, could they grow it? Could they make it work? Sure. Regardless of shady mortal dealings with going against what the guy who made this empire wanted. Individual projects could certainly be good or bad, but there is definitely a lot of questions to ask in terms of oversaturation, burning out the brand, and just good or bad publicity.
Yeah, I agree.
It does say a lot when this is what Nickelodeon keeps putting forward time and time again. This is what Brian Robbins has. We've got another movie coming out. We've got all these other projects. Nickelodeon is also going to be airing the musical on Nickelodeon in a month or two, which is cool. Like that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
They've already put production into it, but it's just like it's another thing. I think there will be burnout at a point. I just don't know really what the point is. At what point there will be burnout, because I mean there will always be a new generation of kids to watch the show, of course. But if they put out like 4 projects at once, if let's say the movie bombs, which we'll talk about the movie in a second, but let's say that bombs, Camp Coral is a big disaster, and maybe the show itself, the main show, isn't doing great at that point. If you have multiple bad projects going on that people aren't receptive to, that can really sour them on a brand.
Oh yeah.
To choose a totally different example, Rick and Morty. It started airing its 4th season. I haven't watched it or cared about it. Not even because I thought that the 3rd season was like so disastrous I never want to watch the show again. No, nothing at all. I didn't really like the 3rd season overall, but It's generally a mixture of not loving the third season and a bunch of time passing has just caused me to be disinterested.
Yeah, exactly.
I will watch the show at some point, but even just something as time can make you disinterested. So if you had a bad experience watching the third SpongeBob movie, it could put you off the brand altogether. One bad experience. And I'm not saying the movie's gonna be bad. I'm just saying the more projects you put out there, the more chance you could have one thing that really just makes the whole thing fall apart.
Yeah.
And it's not guaranteed. Maybe everyone will eat this stuff up. It's entirely possible. Disney's putting out all these live action remakes, and although critically, people have been hating on them, so to speak, the strategy has been working for Disney, and they haven't really been hurt by it at all. So who knows? Oversaturation could be really bad or could mean nothing.
Mm-hmm.
I guess to transition into, we do have more news on the third SpongeBob movie, now entitled Sponge on the Run. It is no longer It's a Wonderful Sponge, and the plot seemingly is no longer about SpongeBob finding out what it'd be like if he was never born or whatever cliched nonsense, the original premise was going to be. Now, it's about finding Gary.
Where's Gary?
Gary, come home. And we got a trailer. We also got a trailer. So First off, the animation looks great.
I agree with that.
I will always prefer the show to have been in 2D, in part because we don't get 2D animation theatrically anymore, just for that selfish reason. But also because I don't think really SpongeBob needed to be in. There doesn't seem to be a good reason for it. At least the second movie gave a reason for them being on land and trying to blend in fight scenes with the CGI like superhero versions of them.
Yeah.
Whereas this, there's no real artistic reason. But if it has to be in CG, if they decided that that's just what makes money, then this is perfectly fine. This is great, even from what we've seen. The animation looks very expressive.
The shading is great.
Yeah, the characters don't look uncanny. Maybe in some still images, but in motion they look completely great.
Someone mentioned that it almost looks like a happy medium between the 2D and the stop motion, which I guess I can agree with.
I can see it. It looks like it almost did take inspiration from the stop motion stuff they've done. Now, obviously, it's not that much of a departure from some of the CG work they did in the second movie, but it's a lot more stylized now. Whereas the second movie was, I guess, kind of safe, undetailed, I guess I'd say. Not necessarily in a bad way, but they were basically like one-to-one analogs of their 2D versions, right?
Yeah.
In the second movie, I would say, which you might be like, oh, well, isn't that faithful? I mean, it is, but it doesn't bring the medium forward. If you're going to do it in CG, take advantage of the fact that it's in CG, which is what this movie looks like it's doing. If nothing else about the film, I have to say the visuals look to be amazing. Mm-hmm. Now, the story, there's an episode of SpongeBob called Where's Gary? Or wait, is that what it's called? No, Have You Seen the Snail? I don't know why.
The DVD is called
that.
Where's Gary, I think.
There we go. Okay. There's also Where's Perry? But yes, and obviously everyone was very fast to point out, yes, this story is very similar to that. And as someone who's not a huge fan of that episode, that doesn't make me the most thrilled. But I will say, look, I'm willing to give it more the benefit of the doubt, because when an 11-minute episode copies the premise, generally speaking, they're very similar because they don't have time to do much else. If the premise is a lot of the episode, but if a movie copies the basic idea of a 22-minute episode, there's plenty of time for the movie to do different things, even if it's the same setup. Mm-hmm. Because we also don't know what's going on with Gary. Gary had a big subplot in Have You Seen the Snail? Whereas we haven't seen where he is at in the trailer yet. So I'm willing to say, although it doesn't look very original, there is definitely room to grow. And if they had to copy an episode, you might as well make it one of the ones that was the most emotionally resonant episode with most people. Why not make that the movie? A movie needs an emotional core. There you go. So I'm not forgiving it for being similar, but I'm adopting a more wait and see approach.
Cautious optimism.
I don't know if I'd say even optimism. It also does look like they're copying the first movie a bit. in that it's a road trip somewhat, and they're Beach City, Atlantic City. You know, it's a wait and see. We don't know how much of the movie will be like that. There is actually intentional references to like the paddy wagon and stuff, so you know, who knows. But yeah, no, I mean, from what I saw, it looked cute. That's how I'd describe it. Nothing about the story has wowed me. The jokes didn't really wow me, but I didn't think they were awful.
Mm-hmm.
So it looks cute. It did what it needed to do for a first trailer, really. It got people talking about it. You know, it shows off the animation style really well.
Shall we not forget there was also Tumbleweed Keanu Reeves.
Oh, yeah.
Listen, I love Keanu more than any other person. Like, I love the John Wick movies. I love The Matrix. You know, who doesn't love Keanu Reeves? But his appearance doesn't feel very warranted. Like, obviously, people make excuses to see him anywhere. But, like, I hope it's just not some jerry-rigged celebrity cameo.
Well, so it's almost certainly a reference to Hasselhoff from the first movie.
But Hasselhoff makes sense because a lot of his career reputation is based on playing a lifeguard, and with the beach, it makes sense. Unless somebody kills Keanu's dog and like he goes on a murder rampage or something.
But no, that to me felt very much like that could have been any celebrity cameo, and they waited and they made that whoever has the most buzz right now. I feel, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like they filmed that much later. That's my just my feeling on that. Because yeah, that's the thing. Hasselhoff had no relevance to any kid watching the SpongeBob movie because Baywatch had been off for years and years and years. I mean, I think a part of the joke is just how random and obscure, not super obscure, but random it is to see Hasselhoff saving SpongeBob. Right. And it is tied to his shtick on Baywatch. I think the one real thing of note, though, is that we got to see Camp Coral for the first time. And by which to say, the location, which has C's, even though the show has K's. So I guess this is before Mr. Krabs bought it or whatever's going to go on.
Yeah, keep in mind, they also show the person from the Salty Spittoon before he has his tattoos.
Yeah, so we don't see any of the other characters there except SpongeBob, who explicitly doesn't have a friend at that point, and he makes friends with Gary. Which contradicts what he said in Plankton's Pet, but whatever. SpongeBob contradicts itself all the time.
This is definitely a bit of a stretch, too, but it was kind of funny because, if I remember correctly, it's kind of funny because I believe it was either the week before or just a couple days before, they had released the Scoob trailer. And
right.
The premise reminded me so much of it, where it's like this origin story, and they're all young, and the protagonist meets his pet and everything, and I'm going to call you Gary. I don't know if he actually says that. I don't remember it, but...
So, first of all, I mean, as much as I love the animation, I really question how this is going to translate to a TV budget and time constraints. Yeah. Maybe it will look good. Maybe it will. I'm not saying it can't, but, like, just because the models are made doesn't mean, like, the lighting, right, and the animation, like, that's going to look cheaper, no matter what they do.
Like, the animation might not have as many frames, like, in between.
Right.
So it might be more choppy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a possibility. You do the best you can with a film. So unless like technology significantly upgrades between this time and when they're making Camp Coral, it's going to look worse. Mm-hmm. It's just a matter of how much worse. It could look worse, but still really good. And then yeah, it doesn't really look like the same premise that we have other than the location. So it almost makes me wonder, like, does Camp Coral take place at a different year than the year that he meets Gary? Like, is it just the same location, or like what's going on there? We still have no idea. We don't know if is that just the beginning of the movie, right, that shows how they met, or maybe SpongeBob will remember back to things that he and Gary did at camp, and that will play a part in like finding Gary. You know what I mean? Like a structure where he remembers, like, you know, Gary used to love fans, and then he has a flashback to a time when they're sitting in the camp and playing with a fan or something. You know what I mean? There are movies that do that structure. So it does kind of make you wonder. It could just entirely have very little to do with the rest of the movie. And considering how much this movie has changed since it was first developed, who knows how much or little connection it'll have to Camp Coral. Okay, so moving away from SpongeBob, but still on Paramount.
If you hadn't heard, Paramount is making a movie about Sonic the Hedgehog where, like a lot of other video game adaptations, he ends up in the real world and people are after him and blah, blah, blah. Anyway, people had an issue because they released a trailer sometime last year, and the design of Sonic was really off-putting. They tried to make him look kind of realistic. He had human teeth, spread his eyes apart, and it was just really ugly. And there was a big fan outcry about it. So the director tweeted saying, "We hear you. We're sorry. We're going to take some time and get this right." They delayed the movie by a few months, and last week or the week before, they released a new trailer with the updated Sonic design, and people are genuinely pleased now, and I agree with that.
Yeah, I'm playfully I dislike Sonic, but genuinely the changes they made were nothing short of like amazing. Now of course this doesn't like change the movie drastically, but like the character like, because the thing about it wasn't just that this character didn't really look that much like Sonic. Like all the time things come out that are adaptations, like SpongeBob, right? He doesn't look exactly like he does in 2D, because again, when you change the mediums, you need to alter some things, or else it kind of looks bland and safe, or it's just kind of a question of why didn't you use the original medium. Anyway, he looked like an abomination, right? It just looked ugly in general. Even if you didn't know anything about what Sonic looked like, you'd have complaints about how ugly and weird this character looked.
It's almost so bad that people have been conspiring and trying to assume that Paramount did this all as a big publicity stunt to stir up attention for the movie.
Well, the thing is, the Sonic Twitter account and like the Sonic team in general have been very media savvy about like using memes, and so I don't necessarily believe that conspiracy, but it wouldn't be the most surprising thing in the world, I guess.
I don't know.
Well, okay. Well, here to
I
add,
don't buy it.
All right. Well, to add further credence to it, even though I don't think they actually changed the movie, the trailer itself was so much more focused on appealing to people who actually like Sonic the Hedgehog, right?
Yeah.
Because the first trailer had nothing signature to Sonic. I think he maybe grabs a ring at one point.
No, it felt very cliche. Gangsta's Paradise was playing in the background.
There's no Green Hill Zone, which is the most iconic Sonic location. There's no Sonic music. There's absolutely nothing recognizable other than a really ugly version of Sonic and a character who is going to turn into Eggman, but even then doesn't really seem that much like him. But in this trailer, you see Green Hill Zone, you see Sonic going through a loop.
You get the music.
I guess just kind of like a Sonic humor, you know? Like, it seems to be
it's
a
more
funnier...
playful. It captures more of his personality, and he's way more emotive.
Right. I think he's obnoxious, but I think it's also capturing what Sonic is, so... But yeah, no. So I don't think they changed the movie, but the marketing team is definitely on point this time, and who knows? I'm not gonna see it, but I have a lot of friends who probably will. So yeah.
I mean, I'm not gonna lie. I kind of wanted to. I might have mentioned this back in the recast where we talked about the first trailer. I wanted to watch the original Sonic movie with like the older design. Assuming that it would be a movie that's so bad that it's good, because as you all know, I'm a big sucker for those types of movies. But no, now I'm like actually, and keep in mind, I don't know anything about Sonic really. I really haven't seen any of the shows. I haven't played a single Sonic video game in my life. But no, the new trailer was fun to watch, and I'm actually kind of interested in seeing it now.
All right. But yeah, no, good all around. Now, I do want to point something out. Like, it is absolutely good to encourage, Paramount and the director and like all the people working on like that. Yeah, they did a good job. It's great that they listened to people. Like, there's nothing wrong with, being like, yeah, thanks for listening. But you don't like, just because you were listened to doesn't mean you owe this company anything. Like,
yeah,
you know what I mean? People go really far to like defend a company, or, they're like, see, and you guys were hating on the original design. And it's like, well, if they didn't hate on the original design, would we have gotten the new design? Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. People are weird. Like,
yeah, people have been saying a lot of interesting things. Like, there've been some people who have complained, like, the animators working on this movie were overworked because they had to make all these changes because of the
We
fans'
don't know
demands.
how many people they hired or
No,
what
yeah,
they
we don't
did.
know
Yeah.
that. They also delayed the movie by like 4 months. Not to mention, initial reports were suggesting that they spent $35 million for the redesign. Now reports are saying that it was $5 million, but still, they dropped millions of dollars on fixing this thing because people were angry on Twitter.
Maybe the animators were happy to have more work. Maybe not. Maybe they were mistreated. I'm not saying they weren't concretely, but like, we have no evidence to suggest anything of the like.
No one has said that they were mistreated.
Yeah. But yeah, no. I mean, it's good to encourage companies when you feel like they're making good business decisions that you want to see more of, but it's bad to just kind of like have blind faith in these companies, and just because they did one good thing doesn't mean like this movie could still be a disaster, and you don't, because I saw some people saying like you owe them buying a ticket now, right? Like they listen to you, so you have to see the movie now, and it's like,
No.
that's not how this works. Like I'm sure maybe the director, right, wanted the change because he felt that this is more artistically valid to have a better looking Sonic, but certainly the studio who approved it just cares about getting the money.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we talked about this, but the Sonic, this isn't like an auteur project, It's not some sort of, art piece here. It's a commercially made film that, I'm sure people put good work into, regardless of how it turns out. But, come on, you don't owe them anything. Sheesh.
Sheesh, yeah.
All right, but on to some more good news. Teen Titans is getting a Blu-ray release.
Yeah, OG Teen Titans.
Yes. Teen Titans Stop, as we call them.
Yes.
The
serious Teen Titans.
Oh, God.
They're very serious.
Well, the other Titans did get serious at one point, but it's they're doing an entire series Blu-ray release, which is exciting because I love entire series Blu-ray releases. I'm a huge sucker for them. But yeah, no, all of the episodes being in like HD widescreen as they should be. I mean, fingers crossed that they are. But in addition, they're not going the Nickelodeon Shout Factory route of like no bonus features ever. Or even like the Cartoon Network Hall of Fame route where most of those didn't have bonus features. This one is going to have a featurette about like the voices of the Teen Titans. It's going to have Trouble in Tokyo, which is a film that Monsters and I talked about a long time ago, right before the recast started. There's like a thing about Puffy Amiyumi, I assume talking about the theme song. There's the Lost episode, which was I'm trying to remember what this even is. I think it's shorter than 22 minutes, but there's like a pilot basically that they made that was never officially
Ooh.
released. I think they showed it at conventions or something. Like it got out there. I think it is on YouTube in like poor quality. But yeah, no, I mean, and more special features. So yeah, I have no idea what this means for the show, and I'm not going to speculate that it's going to come back or not going to come back. But yeah, no, I mean, good on them. Good. I'm glad to see it.
Yeah. This is a must-have for any big fan of the show.
Right, because they've never had any Blu-ray release. They only had
season 1 was out
in Blu-ray.
Yeah,
really?
but I think that was it. Not like season 2 or anything.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, no, and it's great. It's always great when they include things like the Lost episode or the like the movie, because something like Trouble in Tokyo is the sort of thing that could easily slip between the cracks, and they just don't release it anywhere. Like, I don't know, Big Picture Show, Ed and Eddie.
Yeah.
Aside from some digital releases, like that never got a home release. And I bet you if they did like the complete seasons 3 and 4 of Ed, Ed and Eddie and 5, they would not put the movie on any of them.
Or the episode from season 6.
Correct. Yeah. But yeah, no. So good on Cartoon Network for doing that, or good on Warner Brothers. I should
Warner
say.
Bros. Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry. Okay. And listen, this is a parade of getting listened to. This is unprecedented here. Not Nickelodeon. Nickelodeon doesn't listen to anyone.
No.
But Disney, a lot of people were complaining, including me on Twitter, were complaining about the fact that on Disney Plus, The Simpsons could only be viewed in 16:9 aspect ratio. On Simpsons World, there was an option to turn it between 4.3, its original presentation, and 16.9, which is a widescreen presentation that zooms in and cuts off some of the material. Now, for some people, I'm sure they just didn't care, right? Because I will be completely honest. Like, I'll drop my snobbery for a second. Some episodes, some shots look completely fine in the 16:9 aspect ratio, and you wouldn't even know. Yeah. Like, genuinely. I am not saying that 16:9 ruins everything with the show, because it doesn't. It genuinely doesn't. However, notably, there are jokes that it actually crops out, like text that appears on the edges of the screen. And there are times, like when it's a close-up shot of a character's face, that it's cropped off and it looks like the shot is basically framed incorrectly. When you shoot someone's head, like if you're just shooting a head-on shot, you need to have headroom, space above the head, for it to look normal and natural. If you zoom in, you lose the headroom, and it looks like the characters are trying to eat you. There's also other weird quirks where, like, sometimes, like, I think, like, still images will still be presented in 4.3, so you'll end up with them switching back and forth. Like, things that are meant to be displayed on The Simpsons TV are in 4.3 still, and that looks, like, terrible. Disney finally responded, and they are going to fix it. They are going to give us the option of an aspect ratio at some point next year. But, of course, they can't just say that, right? They also have to say, we presented it in 16:9 because we wanted it to be consistent with the rest of the series, and blah, blah, blah. Like, buzz off. Yeah, sure. A lot of people won't care that it's in 16:9, and that's fine. Like, I'm not shaming anyone who wants to watch the show in that way. You know, I'm a purist. I want to watch the show in the original form. I for a few reasons. You know, but I'm not looking down on anyone who wants to watch it in the other way. That's up to them. But yeah, no, Disney, just say that the option, you know, the option isn't out yet. Don't give us this puffery of, like, consistency with newer seasons and assuming what the viewers would want. Like, buzz off.
Yeah.
You know?
Clearly that's not what the viewers wanted.
Nope. A lot of people complained. I do fully believe that Disney probably always intended to give the option, but just that it wasn't out yet, because there isn't many other things that, like, have this issue. You know what I mean? Like, so an actual switch to turn it from 4.3 to 16.9, that is something that requires, like, unique coding and things that they wouldn't have had to do for any other show. So I could see why they didn't want to bring it out to the start, but maybe they should have just, like, said from the get-go, like, hey, this is coming later. That would have saved a lot of headaches.
Oh, exactly.
And maybe we did have it. Maybe we did have an influence. Maybe they were going to try to sweep it under the rug.
Yeah, and the thing is, too, don't they air older Simpsons episodes in 16:9 on TV, like on FXX?
I know Fox for a long time didn't. I don't know if they do. It's tough to say. On that note, Disney Plus launched.
Yeah.
All right.
I think like 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, well, it was like right after. It was before the last episode released, but after we had recorded it. So, yeah, so just like my quick impressions, I was going to buy the year release, but then I realized that I have a Verizon phone plan. Me and my family have this plan that gets me Disney Plus free for a year.
There you go.
So, I know people were calling me a Disney Plus shill, but, like, I can't really complain about the fact that I'm going to get it for free for a year. And again, this goes back to, like, too many streaming services. Well, if you have Verizon Unlimited plan, which I bet a lot of people that have Verizon have the Unlimited plan, there you go. It's free.
For 1 year.
Correct, yes.
And then you'll get dependent on it and then have to start paying for it.
Yes, you are literally forced to because of Disney's nicotine visuals.
Oh, yeah.
No, I mean, I can't complain about the price. I will still complain about the service because that's what I do. The absolute best thing about this, and the one thing that's made me the happiest, the selection of content is wide and amazing. I've been reliving old shows that I watched as a kid, like Recess. I'm excited to watch, like, Kim Possible and Lilo and Stitch the series. I finally got to watch all of season 1 of Ducktales because Disney Now, or whatever their old service was, only had season 2. So yes, I watched it out of order, and yes, I feel bad about doing so, but, whatever. But yeah, I got to see all of it. I'm getting caught up on Big City Greens and Amphibia. Like Disney,
Ooh.
dude, Disney's television animated programming has been on fire lately. And Owl House is gonna come out too. Like it's been visually looking good, and it's been just storytelling wise. I love Big City Greens.
Yeah, which I haven't heard a lot of people talk about. I see it sometimes on Twitter because I follow Rob Renzetti.
It airs a lot on Disney. It's big with kids. And it's getting a third season, or it just got announced that it's getting a third season. But yeah, no, not a lot of people. I think it's just because it wasn't as accessible because it wasn't on any streaming service except for maybe Disney Now. I don't know. But yeah, no, I caught up on that. That's great. There's like all sorts of random obscure movies like like National Treasure, but even like older stuff, like stuff from when my dad was a kid. I'm trying to think, like I can't remember any names, but
Baby
like
Crockett. I don't know if they have any of that on there.
I don't know, but just stuff from like the 50s and 60s. Loads of Marvel movies, loads of
They got Star Wars on there.
Yep, all the Pixar film. Like there's a lot, and a lot of stuff that I'm particularly interested in watching for the first time, like Star Wars: The Clone Wars. The CG one.
Yeah.
Although I would like to see the 2D one. That's not on there yet, unfortunately.
It is on YouTube.
The fact that I can catch up on old Cartoon Network programming on Disney Plus, like.
Yeah, I visited some friends last week, and when I walked into their place, they were watching Hannah Montana on Disney Plus. Just reliving those childhood moments.
There is a lot of diversity here, I would say. So yeah, no, content that's the absolute best thing. Bad things, and there are quite a few. There's no continue watching feature, which is insane. Like, if you start watching an episode, you have to fast forward back to where you were if you come back to it. I'm sure they'll add that later, but that's still a huge negative right now. And because there's no continue watching, the only way to kind of track what you're watching is to put it on your watch list, which is fine, but then it doesn't keep track of where you were, like what episode you were up to, which is annoying. There isn't like any customization options. They have everything under these brackets, right? Where it's like Disney, Pixar, Marvel, National Geographics, and that's great. Except there are certain things like The Simpsons that don't fit into any of those brackets. And of course, you can always search for it. And of course, they have like a giant thing at the top right now, like the scroll through thing that has The Simpsons. I'm sure you'll be able to find it easily, but it's still not super convenient. Like Avatar is another thing that's on there, but it doesn't fall under any of those buckets. And although like the Pixar, Marvel, National Geographics, and Star Wars ones are easy to navigate, the Disney one is awful because there is so much content that falls under that, from Disney Junior to Gravity Falls to National Treasure, Book of Secrets. Like there's so many things that are classified as Disney, and although they have collections and stuff, it's just, I think they have a good idea. I just think that the organization needs to be a little bit better. Maybe like have a Disney live action and a Disney animation just separated out.
Yeah, I'll confess, I actually don't have my subscription yet. I'm not a Verizon member, but I also just, I figured that I shouldn't pay for it yet because I haven't had the time to sit down and watch anything on the service. But from the screenshots that I saw on Twitter and whatnot, at least the web design and the layout looked a lot like Netflix.
Yeah, but I like the categories. I do like that. And they do also have like these subcategories within them. And there's of course a search engine, but you can't search for individual episodes, which kind of stinks.
Yeah, that does.
Like Hulu has that. If I wanted to look up Thanksgiving episodes, themed episodes on Disney Plus, you type in Thanksgiving and nothing comes up, or like random crap comes up. So yeah, but I mean, the things I'm talking about are things that I'm sure they will iron out, but it's still worth pointing out right now because, for some people, maybe they will want to just wait until this stuff is ironed out before getting it. They don't want to pay to be the guinea pigs or whatever. I will say there was issues with connection on the first day, but as far as my experience goes, after that first day, everything has been completely smooth. I think, it stinks that you're paid for that day, technically, and you didn't have access to it. And I think that Disney could have done other things, even though, yes, there was going to be a lot of stress on the server day one, no matter what. They could have staggered the release, like had a pre-release event for people who pre-ordered, so that not everyone was logging in at the same exact time on the same day. They could have done things like that, but they didn't. But as far as I'm concerned, as long as they fixed it within like the first day, that's not a big deal. But it's something worth calling them on if it stayed broken for a long time. And some people are still having issues, but I can't speak to that because I don't know personally.
Well, the crazy thing is that they've already surpassed 10 million subscribers, which is funny because I believe I read that in 2024 they plan to have between 60 and 90 million. And they already surpassed 10, and it's barely been out for less than a month. So I don't want to conspire much, but I feel like, at least for shareholders, they intentionally set really low goals so that they could surpass them exponentially because that's just what Disney does.
Mm-hmm.
But so many people have signed up for it already. It's pretty crazy.
It makes sense because of there was a huge marketing push for this, and
it wasn't until relatively recently that they announced the Verizon thing, and I'm sure that's what happened. Like in the wake of the launch, a bunch of people who have Verizon, just by word of mouth or seeing it online or whatever, figured out that they could get it for free.
And to be clear, it's if you have an unlimited deal with Verizon, or I think there was something with Verizon Fios Internet if you had that too, but that's not what I had.
I have a friend who doesn't have the Verizon Unlimited plan, and so he doesn't have access to it. But he does have Verizon, just not the Unlimited.
Another big, and this is a big deal, some episodes are out of order on some shows, and that is a big deal. DuckTales 2017 has the first episode that introduces everything set as like the third episode, which doesn't make any sense. There are also a few other shows that are zoomed in and 16 by 9'd. I haven't seen them personally, but I heard people talking about some of the old shows where luckily DuckTales 87 wasn't. Neither was Recess or any of the other stuff I've seen so far. But I will say I do know that they did rearrange. DuckTales Season 2 was out of order, and I think they rearranged it. I think they have done some tweaks. So I think they are listening. We know that Fridays at like, I think, Thursday night at midnight is when they unroll new content and updates to the site. Another somewhat negative, I would say, is that the originals thus far are kind of lacking. There was nothing that I was interested in watching of their original stuff day one, just personally, and that doesn't mean that it's the same with everyone, but The Mandalorian was their big one, and I will probably get around to watching it. It's a Star Wars based one. It looks to have a lot of production value. It looks interesting.
Lady and the Tramp live action remake, that's out now.
Hard pass on that. They had Forky Asks a Question, which I did watch, but it's very short, and it's literally just Forky Asks a Question. It's cute, but like it's not substantial.
Is it like
content.
Mater's Tales?
No, it's shorter than that because it's not a story.
Oh.
It's literally Forky's in Bonnie's room. Like Ham will show up, and Forky will ask Ham what money is. It's cute, but it's not like enticing content in my opinion. They also have Pixar in real life, which is just these weird things where it's like they had the emotion board from Inside Out in a park, and if someone pressed a button, the people, like the actors, would start acting that emotion. Like, I don't know, it looked like a weird YouTube video. Like I'm like, what is this?
I also saw I think they're doing a live action series, like an experiential type thing with Jeff Goldblum.
Yes, and that one looked okay, but not necessarily my thing. I don't know. Right. It's personal. It's my personal preference. I'm not knocking it, but there's also High School Musical, the musical. But I will say, like, what is nice, they have a separate section for originals already, which is cool. But yeah, even just looking at it, it's only about 10 things. And each of these things only had the first episode released, the second episode now, because a Friday has passed. So it's not like there's oodles and oodles of new content yet.
And again, that's different. It's because, Netflix has very much popularized the whole bomb format and binge watching thing of dropping things at once. And to be honest, I've kind of gotten used to that habit. So when I see these people trying to tune into The Mandalorian and having to wait each week for the new episode, I mean, it's weird that I react to it oddly because that's the way it's been for most of my life with TV.
But not for streaming. Mm-hmm. People expect that it's all going to be dropped at once. But the thing is, like, as much as I personally love that format because I can watch a ton, at once, and I love getting a whole new season of BoJack at once, does it make sense for a month-to-month streaming service to give you all the content you want at once so then you could unsubscribe the next month? Like, that doesn't make any sense.
I wouldn't do that. Like, I haven't done that. But it just, no, like, I'm a busy guy, and I've got a lot of stuff to do, and I feel like with just everything that goes on in my life, I can't like pay attention to a series if I have to watch it sporadically at different times and different weeks. If I can just allot a block of time to get the whole thing out of the way, I feel like that would give me more of a lasting impression.
Oh, I mean, I agree. I personally like the format more, but I
Yeah.
think that it does make sense for Disney to just slowly roll it out. To
And
keep
there's the
people
whole
subscribed.
anticipation factor as well.
Yes, and discussion, right?
Yeah.
You tweet out BoJack for a week and then no one tweets about it.
Right.
But with The Mandalorian, every week people are going to be going off on and on. And you could definitely tell the marketing team really wants to make High School Musical the musical like the drama show, like
Right.
the current Glee or whatever. Which again, I spoke, it looked like a sort of thing that I appreciated them doing a twist on it, but not something that appealed to me.
Mhm.
So yeah, I will be excited when one of the Marvel projects actually drops, one of the many Marvel projects, or just things that I'm more interested. But there's enough legacy content that I have a ton of things on my watch list already. I want to see Gargoyles. I've never seen that show.
Ooh.
There's so many things from my childhood and that I never got to experience from Disney, Disney television animation, that there's just a lot of things that I'm excited. Darkwing Duck, like, yeah. So yeah, no, altogether, certainly there are quality of life updates that Disney Plus needs to have. Not having a continue watching or whatever, like, that's not cool. Can you get around it? Certainly. But they got to put this stuff in.
Yeah.
So yes, so that's Disney Plus. I'll be talking about it more and more as the weeks kind of go on. So there's one last thing that I want to briefly touch on. There's this thing called COPA, which is basically this. It's not like is it a bill? I don't.
Regulation?
This regulation, yes. This legal thing that the FTC updates every few years, and it's an act that helps prevent children from being taken advantage of on the internet and having data collected about them, which in and of itself is a noble thing. But recently, YouTube is making some major changes with it. And I'm talking carefully because there's a lot of misinformation going on right now. And until the first person gets hit with a fine or gets their channel, forcibly switched to 4Kids or whatever, we don't actually know what's going to happen. So I don't want to give too many details because what I'm saying could potentially be wrong. But it is serious. It could end up being nothing, but if you have a YouTube channel, or you care about YouTube channels, especially ones that feature animation or discussions of animation, try to keep up with the news on COPA. And if you're dissatisfied with it, write into your senator, write into the FTC, and talk about how the changes made are negatively affecting you. Ultimately, this could just be a way to cut down on people who actively take advantage of children on YouTube, which no one would be against. Or they could hit this channel that you're watching this on right now and force me to pay a huge fine, as well as make sure that all of my videos cannot have comments, cannot have suggestions to other videos, don't show up in the algorithm. Like, it basically just completely not just kill any future career on YouTube, any future videos I want to make, but just utterly dead end my channel or anyone else's. So I don't want to, fearmonger, and I also don't want to downplay this. I just want to say that it is an important thing that's going on with YouTube, and with the FTC and our government in America. And even if you're not in America, this still will affect you because YouTube is located in America.
Yeah.
So it's just something to keep an eye out for.
I mean, it's frightening, but you can't help but feel that way when there's not a lot of information and not a lot of clarity. So we're just going to ride it through and see what happens.
So we are going to go on a quick break, and when we come back, life is going to be like a hurricane. And we are back. We are going to first be talking about The Curse of Castle McDuck, which is from the original Ducktales, 1987. So this episode is about Scrooge, Huey, Dewey, Louie, and Webby going to the moors of Scotland, where Scrooge is from, and finding Castle McDuck, which belonged to Scrooge's ancestors, but finding that it's been haunted by druids and a beastly dog. Now, Monsters.
Yeah.
Did this episode remind you of anything?
Not that I could think of, to be honest.
Interesting. It reminded me of something, and I couldn't place it, but it actually reminded me of two things. First of all, this is an adaptation of a Sherlock Holmes novel, The Hound of Baskerville. Would you have guessed that?
No.
Yeah, it's about a demon dog haunting the moors of this castle. It's obviously not a 1-to-1 translation, but it's that. And then it also got me thinking, like, this reminds me of a cartoon, and it took me a long time to figure it out. And no, not DuckTales 2017, smart guys. No, it's Scooby-Doo-like.
Oh, yeah, I guess.
The whole format is like, they show up at a castle, it's haunted, they have to trap the villains, there's like secret panels.
And also they kind of like unveil the antagonists at the end, personify them.
Yup. Downplay like the actual magical nature, even though they are magical druids. The dog itself was not a magical dog. It was just fed something. I don't remember what he says it was fed, but it's like some underwhelming thing. Yeah, so it is a very loose adaptation of a Sherlock Holmes novel, and similar in ways to Scooby-Doo. But otherwise, like, well, what's your experience with DuckTales? Have you ever seen it before?
Yeah, but not enough to remember anything.
Okay. Did you have any expectations going in? Like, for a show made in 1987, like, were you thinking anything?
Yeah, I expected some level of camp, but more than not, I obviously know how popular this show is among like the whole 90s generation and how beloved it is, and how it was, I guess, popular and iconic enough to warrant a reboot in the first place. So no, I did have certain expectations going in that, like, this series is certainly special to a lot of people, or just nostalgic in some way. So,
well, it also codified how Disney would handle all of its other television animated programming.
So yeah.
And what did you think of it?
I thought it was decent. I mean, I can't say I found a lot of the jokes funny, but I think the episode, even though I didn't grow up with DuckTales really, it still did feel nostalgic in some way.
It's very...
It's a homecoming story.
Okay. I was just gonna say, I mean, if you've seen any older Disney animations, this looks like that on a TV budget,
Oh, especially like the druids like marching in the castle.
Mm-hmm.
Like that feels very old school.
And I mean, it is 87 is old, over 30 years ago.
Yeah.
I could see someone with modern sensibilities watching this and just not understanding at all why this show was so influential and beloved. But if you look at it at the time of like other things that were happening, 87 is 4 years before any Nicktoon happened, and like 11 or 12 years before any Cartoon Network show happened.
I noticed some cinematic parallels here too, in that the episode is about Scrooge bringing his young relatives to a place that was familiar to him growing up, and and just kind of talking about the older times. And that's like you're telling me about this thing that you experienced growing up that I have zero idea about. And apparently it was a scary show. No.
I didn't watch DuckTales growing up.
Oh, really?
I got the season 1 DVD a few years ago. No.
Oh.
I wish.
But you did watch Disney Afternoon though, right?
How old do you think I am? Disney Afternoon was off the air like before
Anyway.
There is a certain level of... Yeah, it's goofy, but I would argue that it takes itself more seriously than a show like Scooby-Doo.
Yeah.
A little bit. Like, there is genuine atmosphere building in the episode with the fog. The beginning of the episode starts out with, like, a sheep herder getting haunted by the dog.
I mean, I was just thinking, Scooby-Doo also has a laugh track. And this does not.
Yes. It is cool that they kind of have mythos of, like, Scrooge visiting his old home and like stuff like that. The show, it had 5-episode story arcs sometimes. It was not a show that really like built on itself in a crazy way, I would say. Not in the way that we understand serialization like season by season now. But there definitely was some continuity in episodes. And so, it is cool that they kind of had a little bit of a showing Scrooge's origins. I mean, his heritage is like one of the most iconic things about the character. Like the first thing you notice is his accent.
Yeah.
It makes sense to set an episode right there. Now, I will say one of the things that doesn't hold up and is especially in stark contrast to the 2017 series, the characterization on everyone but Scrooge. Everyone else in this episode, all the other ducks in this episode. I can't speak to any of the other characters because I don't really remember that well. But Huey, Dewey, Louie, and Webby have no personality.
Yeah, they all feel pretty interchangeable.
Huey, Dewey, and Louie are literally interchangeable. Webby has cute little girl, but that's her personality. She's adorable and precocious. Like, that's her thing. But Huey, Dewey, and Louie, any line could have been given to any of them. It's not even just that they're interchangeable, but they don't even have a character. Most of their dialogue in this episode is pointing out the obvious, like, look, Uncle Scrooge, they disappeared. Or, like, is this where you grew up? Like, no, seriously, if you look at every single one of their lines, they don't do anything.
They walk into his room, they're like, whoa, look at all those toys.
Right, like Webby gets lost behind a panel. You know what I mean? Like, that's what they exist for. They are there to point the obvious and get captured. I don't want to say that's their role in the entire series because I don't remember entirely, but in this episode especially, it's like Kid Surrogate, but the problem is it's not just one Kid Surrogate character, it's 4 of them, which is just excessive. I think Scrooge's character in the episode is fine and great. I think you get a strong sense of kind of who he is and how he's protective of the kids, and he's a little bit scared going into it.
Not to mention the entire town is against him.
Right.
Because he approaches them and says his name, and they're just like, McDuck, and then they run away.
I would argue that one of the strongest points is how good the characterization is on Huey, Dewey, Louie, Webby, and all the side characters.
Yeah, they almost feel a little bit more mature and less like children.
Right. Well, see, that's an important thing. Not to get too far into comparisons, but the way the characters are written, especially Webby, but also Huey, Dewey, and Louie, they are young kids. They act realistically like children, I suppose. They act less like children in the reboot, but they act like better characters, right?
Right.
Just because someone is a realistic child, I would argue that makes it a worse character because
they're smarter.
Right, young kids can be very naive. They can be very wishy-washy on their emotions. Right, they can be very annoying sometimes too. Not always, but like you'll notice a lot of kid protagonists on shows do not act like literal children. They act like some childish like naivete mixed with maturity of having a consistent character and goals and wants. And they're characters. They're good characters. And so that's what I would say. I guess they're more realistic in the original, but in the 17 series, they are much more developed characters.
I agree with that.
The Curse of Castle McDuck, the original Ducktales episode, it is Scooby-Doo ultimately, and I'm not gonna say that's the best. I think some of the atmosphere in the episode is good. I think Scrooge's character is good. I think like some of the locations and the animation for 1987 is good for television animation.
Yeah, and I did find some of the lore behind the castle to be genuinely interesting.
And they do a good job building up. Like, it doesn't start out with them at the castle. Like I said, that starts out with the shepherd being tormented, and then you go and you see where Scrooge really grew up in the cottage. That's not the castle. And there's just like time spent talking about like Scrooge's past and like stuff like that. Like it's not just there to do a quick mystery, whodunit story and then be done. It properly builds it up. It's 22 minutes and it uses those decently well. Am I going to say that the mystery story was great? No, I don't think it was. Better than your average Scooby-Doo episode, I'll give it that. I kind of like the reveal that the Stonehenge thing was part of the structure, and that's why the old McDuck built it there. But like the whole the trapping the villains, and obviously like the druids were behind it. They don't even hide that fact. And
well, how apt do you think it is too that that the compromise that they settle on in the end of the episode is to make an amusement park, which is obviously what Disney is very well known for.
It's dumb. It's like enjoyably campy, that part, but it's like dumb because it's like these druids wanted peace, and the compromise is that like there'll be an amusement park and busy in the day, so it's quiet at night. But like, what sense does that even make?
I don't know.
And the druids only ever appear at night, except when they feel like appearing in the day.
There's some odd plot contrivances and conveniences, like the hound disappearing and reappearing, and the druids, and so on.
Right, and the hound's not magical, but it's still like giant for some reason.
Yeah.
Scrooge also has like these sausage links in his bag at all times, which it's cartoony. Like, it works as a cartoon, but in terms of like taking the story more seriously, it you know, it's a goofy cartoon. I mean, that's basically it. It's kind of a what you see is what you get. If you want a Scooby-Doo mystery starring Scrooge McDuck with some good atmosphere, some pretty cool music, I would say. It's very 80s, very strange by today's scoring standards, because it's like jazz is playing while like a spooky segment is happening.
It's funky.
Right. But I would say it adds to the charm and the quote-unquote nostalgia of it, because you wouldn't do something like that today. I wouldn't call this bad. For its time, I think it was probably pretty good. By today's standards, it is certainly watchable and enjoyable, but it's age shows.
Yeah.
And especially now that we have DuckTales 2017 to compare it to, I think in a lot of ways it makes the older show look worse, just because DuckTales 2017 is good at what it does.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment too, of course, you know, you can't have a show based on anthropomorphic animals without having like animals acting like animals in this with the puppies.
Yeah.
So that I found that was pretty interesting. It's kind of like Disney overall, with Pluto being a dog and also Goofy.
That would have been a twist if the haunted hound was actually Goofy.
Yeah. Yeah. Pops out.
Yeah.
Also, kind of in the vein of you mentioning Scooby-Doo, a show that was released around the same time, maybe this would make an interesting comparison to something like A Pup Named Scooby-Doo.
That's a very 80s show.
Yeah, and it's, you know, kids. I don't know.
Right. Interesting. All right, well, let's move along to The Secrets of Castle McDuck, which is the reboot episode. You'll notice I'm not really using the titles because The Curse of Castle McDuck and The Secrets of Castle McDuck that's very easy to get confused. Mm-hmm. It's worth noting that the title, The Secret, the S is in parentheses because there are multiple secrets in Castle McDuck.
Yeah. Ooh.
Okay, so the plot of this one is... And I'm sorry, Monsters, that this does have a little bit of continuity with like other episodes. I couldn't find a comparison that had like a purist, you know, kind of like a non-continuity referencing episode. Because there are some that don't reference continuity all that much in the reboot. It's not like a super crazy heavy continuity show. Anyway, the backstory to this episode is that Dewey has uncovered a few secrets about the triplets' mom, who has mysteriously disappeared, and he has not told the other triplets. Yeah, I mean, that's basically it. I'm sure you got it. The opening of the episode explains it decently well. I just wanted to let you know that you weren't missing any other context, really, than that. There's a little more details about what he found, but it doesn't really matter in the context of this. So, basically, Dewey wants to find out more about what's going on with his mom in Castle McDuck, because, of course, it has a huge history of the McDucks. And while he's trying to find it, he's also trying to keep his brothers away from the secret of you know, that he knows about their mom, a little bit about their mom. And so that's one of the secrets, and one of the adventures is them going through secret passages and trying to uncover the mystery there. And then the other one is Scrooge is there because he is trying to find this other treasure, but the castle is owned by his parents, his still alive parents, for reasons we'll get to, and his dad won't tell him like where to start looking for this treasure, and there's family drama between him and his father. I think that about sums it up in a lot more words than I usually try to, but...
Well, it's complicated. There's lots of subplots, and...
Well, there's only the two, but...
Also, whatever Webby's doing, too, is that a subplot?
I guess. I mean, she's fangirling about... So, like, that's one of the cool things, is that Webby in the original, like, you know, admired Scrooge in kind of like she's really young and like, you know, he's an authority figure kind of way. But the Webby of the reboot series is, like, she's like fascinated with his adventures. You know, she's like
a stan.
Basically, yes. She stands. I can't even use that term unironically. No, but like, yeah, she's very interested in like the adventures he went on and studying him like in an anthropomorphical no, not archaeological type way.
Yeah.
Gosh. But yeah, and so that's one example of taking something that, you know, it was there in the original show, but then adapting it into something that is really cool, really developed, gives her more agency as a female character, and that's great.
Yeah.
Speaking of adaptation, because that's DuckTales 2017 is all about taking elements from the original show and using them in unusual ways. For instance, did you catch how Scrooge's parents are still alive?
Yeah, isn't it from the Druid Stones? Mm-hmm. Isn't there just some magical element to it that's keeping them alive?
Well, the line is that he accidentally cursed them with some old Druid Stones lying around. Do you get the connection?
Yes.
Yes. It's a reference to the other episode. Not that they both happened because they take place in different continuities, but that there's Druid Stones. I didn't notice that when I watched the episode like for the first time when I was just watching the show because I hadn't seen the original. But that's such a cool little tie-in. Like it doesn't mean anything. It's not even fan servicey in a distracting way because you have that's a line that is funny that he accidentally cursed his parents with immortality and his dad's upset about this. Like, you know, at first I thought they were just going to do a cartoonish thing where it's like, haha, he's like ancient and his parents are even ancienter. But no, they gave a funny explanation to it.
Yeah. And for being Scrooge's parents, they're surprisingly youthful.
Yeah, well, immortality will do that.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, there's that. There's also the Hound is in both episodes, but that's not like the main mystery. They just, since they're visiting Castle McDuck, they decided to pay homage to the original episode by having the Hound. But they don't feel like they don't feel the need to tell the same story, right?
No.
It's mystery themed in a similar way, but the mystery is about Della Duck, their mom, which is so much higher stakes than like what happened to this old castle. DuckTales 2017 takes everything that worked about the 87 series and then just makes it even better by utilizing modern storytelling techniques, right? Having it be more serialized, having the characters be more developed, you know, treating its audience more maturely, not needing to point out the obvious to them like the other one clearly does. And so I that's why I love it, and that's why I think it is such a fantastic adaptation, because it does not want to retell the same stories, but it also does want to pay tribute to what came before it.
Oh yeah, no, it's super smart, but it does maintain some of those values of children's animated programming, like teaching lessons. You know, like
correct.
One of the biggest takeaways from the episode is like father, like son.
Right.
In more than one way.
Mm-hmm.
And also, it doesn't sugarcoat things. It's not afraid to be funny too. It takes itself seriously, but it also has funny moments.
Right.
Kind of on that thread, bringing it back to your Scooby-Doo analogy, this almost kind of feels like the DuckTales version of Mystery Incorporated, where it's serialized and they take things a little bit more seriously and there's more character development and so on.
Huh. I would say this is definitely better than Mr. Ink in my opinion. But no, I agree. That is an apt analogy. See, like the original one had a mystery, but this one, it's not just content to have like a mystery of like, ooh, what happened to Della Duck? Like, let's find it. Because it's not just about that mystery. It's more about the siblings keeping things from each other. And because there's this whole thing about them working together, because they work together to solve the puzzles, but then Dewey's hiding something, and ultimately they have to kind of reconcile that he is hiding something very important about their mother for, I don't want to say entirely selfish reasons, but his excuse about like he's trying to protect them doesn't ring entirely true, I don't think. So Dewey did find a note with Della apologizing for something, right? Implying that maybe she did this horrible thing in the past.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing particularly like hard evidence saying she was a terrible person or something. Um, but yeah, no, I like that. And you definitely, in this episode, you get a strong sense of who they are.
Oh yeah.
Huey, the red one, his thing is that he's a junior woodchuck, and he's kind of book smart. He plays things by the manual. He uses a lot of common sense. He's not a genius character per se, but he's a common sense character. Dewey is a much more go with his gut type character. Like an easy way to remember what Dewey's thing is Dewey does it because he will jump headfirst into adventure, right? He's a little more energetic. He's a little more outgoing than Huey. Dewey is just kind of like he's a go-getter. And Louie is the more lazy of the three of them, but he is motivated by money. He likes to collect treasure. He wants to be what Scrooge is. He's interested in the fortune and all of that stuff.
Right.
And he's more laid back. He's also a little bit more scared. They kind of represent the three sibling structure of the oldest one is kind of like the wisest and doesn't feel the need to stand out so much. It feels confident in who they are. The middle child is the one that's always trying to impress everyone because they don't get enough attention, and the youngest one is the one that is kind of a little more scared, a little less confident about who they are, etc. Even though they're triplets, they represent these things in typical three sibling dynamics,
right?
And it's on display here. Like Louis, he finds the pure gold key because he likes gold. He's also the one that's the most shook up at not knowing about their mom because he's the most insecure of the three of them.
Yeah, that was funny when there's this whole pile of gold and he just goes to the bottom, finds it. They're just like, "How'd you do that?" He's just like, "I don't know. I just really like gold."
No. He has good reasoning too. Real gold weighs more than fool's gold. And if you look at the sheen and luster,
smart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I mean it is because he likes gold. But yeah, no, and that's the thing. Like original Ducktales would not have clarified that. It would have been a gag. Just a simple gag. Yep, he found the key fast. LOL. But this one, it's a gag, and then they also give a slight explanation. And I know it might seem pedantic, but little things like that help make the world feel a little more real. Even though they have the cartoon joke.
It does feel like there's a lot less plot conveniences.
Right. So there's that. And then, the stuff with Scrooge and his dad is very... I don't want to say adult in the sense that it's inappropriate for children, but adult in the sense that it is not the relationship that a child has with his father. It is the relationship that an adult child has with his adult father.
Yeah.
It's like a father-grandfather dynamic. And again, I appreciate that the show is willing to be a little more mature and have that subplot that is, it's got goofy, cartoony moments, but it ultimately is about the two of them yelling at each other and being angry with each other and then coming together. There's a really nice touch. DuckTales is all about the little touches. Above the fireplace in the dining room, there is one portrait on the left of Scrooge's father and one portrait on the right of Scrooge, separated by the fireplace, and they are both angrily looking towards the other's picture. Just a cute little touch in the background that most people would never notice.
Yeah, that's good staging.
But yeah, speaking of the comedy, it's not a Gravity Falls level of laugh all the time show. But it definitely has funny moments.
Launchpad.
Oh god, so Launchpad is in this episode as Donald Duck. and Launchpad is a bit of a goofball. And of course, Donald has very recognizable mannerisms. So seeing him try to emulate Donald, and Scrooge's parents don't know what Donald's like as an adult. So it's pretty funny.
Oh boy.
I love the line, "Curse me, kill," and then his dad's like, "Don't curse in front of your mother." He's not actually cursing, he's just cursing his kid. Like, that's his cat. It's one of his catchphrases, and they treat it like he said a curse word.
Right.
Yeah. So there's some solid jokes in there. One little thing is that, like, how many rich McDucks were there? And then, like, how did Scrooge's parents grow up poor if there's so many rich McDucks? Did they all lose their fortunes, or are they all that greedy that they're buried with it or something? Like, what? How are they simultaneously the richest and poorest people in the world? Like, you got to imagine at a certain point there's been enough McDucks that, like, just controlling interest of the globe is in McDuck. enterprises. It's also rather funny because in 87, you know, having a millionaire like be your main character or a billionaire, it's like, oh, that's cute. But like in 2017, a lot of people don't like millionaires.
No.
You know, for some legitimate reasons and a lot of, in my opinion, kind of illegitimate reasons. They got to have someone to hate. But it is kind of nice that Scrooge represents a very kind millionaire, I'd say. He's got his greedy moments, and that's a part of his character.
He feels humbled.
Yes, he is very... you know, he has bouts of uncontrollable greed, but he is also a philanthropist. You know, he does give back, and he does genuinely care about his family.
He has emotion.
Right. Yeah, and I mean, honestly, the mystery in this episode is almost like subversions of typical mystery stories, because in the end, the mystery with the triplets is that their mom played a prank on their uncle.
Yeah.
And I guess that the halls are haunted by the old McDucks. Yeah, like the twist is that there is no villain, you know, it was just dumb for kicks. And then the mystery with Scrooge, like they don't even get the treasure because Dingus McDuck, Dirty Dingus McDuck, which I just...
Dingus.
Dirty Dingus McDuck will never not be funny to me.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe it's immature. It's not even...
I mean, didn't the characters laugh at it when they mentioned him the first time?
Yes, but it's also an alliteration. Like, Dirty Dingus McDuck... Just the amount of D's in there, it's... And that anyone would want to go by Dirty Dingus. Do you think he chose that name? Or do you think that was coined by someone else?
Who knows?
Do you think his son called him that?
Yeah, like in retrospect.
In like the 1500s or whenever.
Yeah.
Another really nice thing. Okay, so you don't really get the context of this, but Scrooge and the shoeshine thing, right? That was referenced a few times up to this point about how Scrooge started to amass his fortune. That is a very pivotal thing to his character. So they do not just invent it for this episode to have a touching moment with his dad. That is a genuinely like established thing that they worked into making a really nice resolution and a nice... I really like what the deal is, what the conflict is, because ultimately his dad made Scrooge so self-sufficient that he didn't need his father, as evidenced by the fact that Scrooge hasn't visited them in like 40 years.
Yeah.
So that's a very real point of contention, because Scrooge he's more successful than his father. And that's tough, right? It's
oftentimes you're trying to like stack up to what your father did before you.
Right. You know, so it's like he's taught Scrooge a valuable lesson, but it hurt their relationship, and it yeah. So I like that. I like the resolution. I liked, you know, I think it's reasonable why he was cranky, and you know, he should have obviously not. You know, his crankiness comes from a place of being hurt instead of just like arbitrary crankiness or whatever. Like,
yeah.
So yeah, I mean, overall, I really enjoyed this episode, and I think it's a great showcase of Scrooge as a character and of Huey, Dewey, and Louie. Actually, ironically, I think this is a solid episode to show someone to get them interested in the characters. Obviously, stuff happens before it, and yes, you'll get more out of it if you start from the beginning, as I would recommend. But if you are looking for an episode, you know, you're not interested in watching like the first episode. This is not the worst way to introduce someone to these characters in this show.
Yeah, especially because of the faint but still present continuity nods. And I'll be honest, I'll confess, I didn't take any notes during this episode in contrast to the 80s episode. But that was because I felt like I didn't really need to. Like, obviously there were certain things that I thought of, but it was a memorable episode, and the reason I didn't, you know, take time to write down stuff is because I was genuinely having a really good time. I was thoroughly entertained, and I just wanted to keep watching it.
That's great, man. Like I mentioned, Disney's television animation has just been really killing it lately. And the show looks great, too, by the way. Has a very specific style, but very few animation mistakes.
Interesting uses of perspective, too.
In what ways?
Like characters like moving their heads, and it almost kind of looks 3D, but not really.
Oh boy, I'm gonna get flack for saying this. It looks like a better version of the Loud House.
Oh boy.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I highly recommend DuckTales 2017. I really, really do.
The colors are
Um,
really good too. Like
mhm.
it's like they're a little bit muted, but in a really kind of artsy way. Like it's not colorful just to be colorful. I mean, I don't know if this episode would be a good example of how to showcase that because it is kind of dark and in a bunch of like caves and whatnot. But no, like the production design and use of color is really interesting.
Well, there's also a stylistic touch with a bunch of like comic book style dots because Scrooge McDuck started out as a comic character way, 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 way back. So it's very light. It's not like the show has a completely comic book design, but I mean the intro sequence, like obviously, is modeled after a comic book. But every so often they'll shade something with like a bunch of dots, and it's just like little stylistic things really make the show stand out and look interesting. Put that on your CalArts picture. Put Scrooge McDuck's head. I'm pretty sure it doesn't line up with the same shape. In terms of comparisons and similarities, there were like a decent amount. There's the Druidstone curse. There's the castle, Scooby-Doo-esque mystery. Both of them are about horrible family secrets, right? Because in the
Yeah.
original one, it was about what the old, I don't even remember his name, not Dirty Dingus, Clean Chungus McDuck.
Clean fungus.
Clean Chungus McDuck. Um, so okay. It's what he kind of, wasn't very nice to the druids, kind of took their property basically. And this one was about something that Della Duck may have done, and also what Dirty Dingus McDuck did to hide away the treasure. So, they're both kind of about family Clan McDuck not doing so nice things.
Yeah.
There's also the glowing hounds in both of them, secret passages, and a cute little note is embarrassing pictures of Uncle Scrooge. The original has Webby like making fun of him for wearing a kilt, and in this one we get to see like Webby. She's like adorable baby Scrooge, brooding teenage Scrooge. Like she points out the different Scrooges, and it's cute. If it's not already obvious, I think we both think that the 2017 episode is a lot better.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing against the 87 show. DuckTales 2017 really, really, really just modernizes everything in the best ways, tributes to the original, and just does its own thing. It's not busy trying, but still feels like DuckTales, right?
Yeah.
Like, Powerpuff Girls 2016, quote, does its own thing, but it doesn't feel at all like Powerpuff Girls. They're still going on the same kinds of adventures they would have in the original show, just with more, better, more developed characters, more intricate storylines, some more mature ideas and themes, and treating the audience with a little more respect, a little bit more continuity and intrigue, and just better in every way.
I completely agree.
But we had some really great viewer comments, so let's say a few of those.
Yeah.
So from Kirby Over Yonder, after watching the entirety of the DuckTales reboot, it was nice to go back and watch an episode of the original series. I didn't think it was amazing or anything, but it was definitely charming. I really liked the design of Castle McDuck, but the story was rather predictable. The reboot episode is a lot better in my opinion. Scrooge's struggle with his parents was both very funny as well as interesting and relatable. Launchpad pretending to be Donald was hilarious, and the reaction that Scrooge's dad gave him his first dime was really sweet. Huey, Dewey, and Louie's plot was also interesting. I like how it furthers the Della Duck storyline of Huey and Louie finding out about what Dewey has been doing was treated very seriously, which I liked. Overall, the reboot episode is more polished, gripping, funny, and overall, the better episode. Very well said. That's like a concise way of saying everything that we've said.
Yeah.
I also, I just thought of this. I also like that the triplets, this isn't enough to tear them apart. The tearing apart of identical sibling, or not identical, but siblings born at the same time, was a very contentious plot point on Gravity Falls that I don't feel was handled the best. But here it's like, they treat it seriously. They are upset at Dewey. It's not just brushed off, but it's also not something that completely ruins their friendship or their brothership. I think it has an appropriate amount of them being upset and then reconciling. It's not dragged out, right? Like, you could see this dragged out for like 3 episodes or something where they're fighting. But no, they did it. I think they did it very respectively. You want to read the next one?
Sure. So this one is from Bagel Bite the Neutral. Shout out, Bagel Bites are great.
I don't think Bagel Bites ever commented, or not that we've read, so...
Welcome. Yeah.
Thanks for the comment.
Thank you for contributing. All right, and they said, "This is the first time I specifically watched something for the recast, and with the power of Disney Plus, it was easy. I've only seen a few episodes of each show, and I haven't watched either of these episodes until now. I got a somewhat nostalgic feeling watching the 80s episode since I used to watch a lot of stuff from before my time. I enjoyed the setup of the classic Curse story and the fact that Scrooge returns to a nostalgic location from his childhood. I also enjoyed Scrooge's childhood paranoia. For being an old kids show, the episode surprisingly has a lot of atmosphere in its settings and even music. Overall, I think it's a good episode. As for the reboot episode, it was enjoyable on its own merits despite being connected to the overarching plot. The relationship between Scrooge and his parents was heartwarming, entertaining, and even a bit dark, taking the backstory told by him at the beginning of the episode into consideration. The triplets plot was also pretty good. The connections between both episodes is very loose, but it still carries some of the same themes from the original episode. I enjoyed this diversion. The reveal of this mystery was a great subversion from the mystery plots too, and Launchpad pretending to be Donald I also thought was pretty funny. Overall, I prefer this episode over the 80s one, but that doesn't lessen any of my enjoyment of the 80s episode."
Another well-said comment.
Yeah, I completely agree.
Yeah, and I also thinking about it, the reveal that Scrooge's father basically gave him the dime or was the one that felicitated the whole thing. It actually, it's DuckTales in a nutshell, because it's basically, the show is obviously about a very rich duck and collecting treasure, but at its core, it's a show about family. So the fact that Scrooge's riches came from family, and without his family, he would have had nothing. I think that's rather poetic and really, really fits the theme of the show so well.
I also just looked it up and I remembered the Scrooge's ancestor who built the castle is named Silas.
I'm going to go with Clean Chungus, but Clean Chungus McDuck. So yeah, thank you guys for the comments. And by virtue of how much a lot of you guys wrote, I can tell you were really invested in this. And I am glad that Disney Plus has made it easy for you guys to watch some of the stuff that we're talking about.
Oh yeah. All right, so I got some trivia for you, Pie. It's obviously DuckTales related. We're going to do real, or actually not real or fake. We're going to do reboot or not reboot. I'm going to read you a synopsis.
Also known as reboot or original, as we usually call it, but...
Yeah.
In this case, the reboot's so good that it makes you think that the original one is like the other version.
Yes. But yeah, I'm going to give you a synopsis, and I need you to tell me if the episode that I'm referencing is from the original 80s version or the 2010s reboot. You get 1 point for each.
Now, even though I've just seen the recent series, like I said, a lot of it's inspired by a lot of plots. So like throwing specific plot elements into a description, it's not going to be easy necessarily. So I'm excited.
All right, let's get it. Here's the first episode. I'm going to read it off to you. A family debt causes Scrooge to lose his entire fortune, sending his entire family into the poorhouse. Is that from the original or from the reboot?
That is, you picked a great synopsis that, like, a version of which has certainly happened in both. Actually, wait, maybe not. I'm gonna say original. I don't quite recall something exactly like that happening in the reboot. I'm still gonna say original. I'm gonna say original. I feel like that's an original.
Are you sure?
No, but that's what I'm going with.
Well, you should be sure because that's correct.
Woo! Okay.
The episode is called Down and Out in Duckburg. I'm not sure what that's referencing, but it is the 22nd episode of the first season. All right. Next prompt. The nephews make business decisions in Scrooge's name while Scrooge is in the hospital.
I think that's also an original episode. Yeah, I don't recall anything like that happening in 2017 one.
You're correct.
Woo! Okay.
The episode is called Yuppie Ducks.
Is that a play on Lucky Ducks?
I don't know. I don't know if I've ever heard the word yuppie used before.
Oh,
Bubble yuppies?
No, it's like a hipster, like you're like a yuppies moved in next door and they're I don't know. Anyway, all right, I'm 2 for 2.
Louis decides to keep Scrooge's company in fortune, which he won in the bet, and live it up as the richest duck in the world until an emergency arises on a mysterious island Scrooge owned.
Because Monsters is predictable, and also because I just watched this episode, I know it is from the reboot. It's actually my least favorite episode in all of the reboot. Louis is kind of insufferable here and deserves what he gets.
Yeah, take that, Louis. But you're 3 for 3 so far. Let's move on to the fourth one.
Woohoo! Looks like I'm not in the danger.
Tired of the constant adventuring, Louis attempts to avoid another one by proposing a family game night, causing Scrooge's competitive nature to kick in.
Okay, well, by virtue, I know I've seen this episode, so I definitely know what it is. But also by fact that the triplets act independently, that means that it's a reboot episode.
That's fair. Yeah, that's correct. The episode is called "The Most Dangerous Game." Night. And it's the first episode of Ducktales season 2 of the reboot.
Yep.
All right, 4 for 4. Let's see if you can finish strong. Scrooge and the boys head to a swamp in search of the fabled Fountain of Youth from Spanish mythology. There they encounter the ghost of Ponce de Leon.
Me and the boys strolling up to the Fountain of Youth. I don't recall that happening in the reboot, so I'm going to say it's in the original.
Well, yeah, you are correct. The episode is called Sweet Duck of Youth. I don't think there's really any wordplay there, but 5 for 5. Congrats. You are a certified by me DuckTales expert.
All right, so maybe it wasn't so hard having watched the series like last week. But,
yeah.
But yeah, no, all right, thank you for the trivia, Monsters.
Yeah, of course.
All right, next week on the recast, we don't actually know what we're doing next week, so join us then to find out. Okay, and that's our show, everybody.
Oh, wrong franchise, sorry.
Once again, thanks to everyone in the Discord who posted like lengthy comment reviews of these DuckTales episodes. Like,
we really appreciate those.
I enjoyed reading them. Unfortunately, we couldn't read them all out on the show, but like, there's some great discussion going on in there. And even though, I mean, general consensus is that the reboot is better, it is still interesting to see how people react to an episode from 1987.
Especially if there's a nostalgic attachment, because it's like, you know, how can you differentiate that?
Right. All right, well, we'll see you guys next week. PIEGUYRULZ, out.
Catch you guys next time.